July 11, 2025. Robinsonville, Mississippi. A quiet Friday evening on Solio Drive. Inside one home, a little 6-year-old girl was singing her heart out to the man she loved most in this world, her father.
How old are you? Mama wants to yawn so bad. Yay!
Hours later, deputies would pull up to that same address, and what they found inside would leave an entire community speechless. One woman dead, a young man fighting for his life, and that same little girl, the one who was just singing, now in critical condition. This is the story of Nykeria Jude, and I promise you, once you hear it, you will never forget her name. Welcome back to Unseen Stories. I'm glad you are here today, because what we are about to discuss is not just a crime story. It is a conversation our community has been needing to have for a long time. Now, if you are new here, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we cover stories that matter. Stories that do not always make the national headlines the way they should. Stories about real people, real families, real communities, and the very real consequences of things we sometimes choose to look away from. Today's story comes out of Robinsonville, Mississippi, a small town, a quiet neighborhood, and a family that the world only got to hear about because of the worst possible reason. Her name was Nykeria Jude. She was 30 years old, and by every account from everyone who knew her, she was one of those people who just made a room feel warmer the moment she walked in. We are going to talk about who she was, who he was, what happened that night, what came after, and most importantly, what this means for us as a community. So settle in, because this one is going to take us somewhere deep. Nykeria Jude grew up in Mississippi. Those who knew her described her as easygoing, unbothered, the kind of woman who kept to herself, handled her business, and poured everything she had into her children. She was not a complicated person. She was not someone who went looking for trouble. By all accounts, she just wanted a decent life, a stable home, a family she could be proud of, and for a while, it seemed like she was building exactly that. She had a son, Marquavius Young, 24 years old at the time of this story, and she had a daughter, a 6-year-old little girl named Maralaysia, bright, loving, the kind of child who sings happy birthday songs with her whole chest and means every single word. Nykeria loved being a mother. You could see it in the way she posted about her children, the way she showed up for them, the way people described her relationship with Maralaysia, close, warm, the bond that only a mother and her child can truly understand. Now let us talk about Marquavius Braxton. Marquavius Braxton was 41 years old. He was from the same area, Robinsonville, Mississippi. He and Nikeria had crossed paths the way people do in small towns. A shared space, a familiar face, and eventually, something that felt like love. They got together. They built something. They had a baby shower. And the footage from that day exists. People gathered around them. There was joy in that room. Laughter. Anticipation. The kind of energy that comes with new beginnings. And Marquavius, at least on the surface, appeared to be a dedicated father. There is video of little Maralaysia singing to him, calling him daddy, looking at him with a kind of pure, unfiltered love that only a child can give. Happy birthday to daddy. Happy birthday to daddy. Happy birthday to daddy. Happy birthday to you. Watch that video. Watch her face. That little girl had no idea. None. And that is what makes this story so heavy. Because somewhere between that baby shower and that birthday song, something shifted in Marquavius Braxton. And the people around this family would spend years watching the signs, and not knowing, or not being able, to stop what was coming. Now I need to pause here and ask a real question. How many of us have watched someone we care about stay in a situation that we knew was not right? How many of us have said something, or wanted to say something, and held back because it felt like it was not our place? I'm asking because this story forces us to look at that honestly. From the outside, Nikeria and Marquavius looked like a family. And in some ways they were. But relationships are layered. And what the public sees and what happens inside a home are often two very different things. According to people who knew them, Their relationship was described as on and off. There were good periods, and there were periods that were anything but good. Starting as far back as 2015, 10 years before this story ends in tragedy, authorities had been called to their home on Solio Drive for domestic disturbances. Not once, not twice, multiple times. Over the course of a decade. Let that land. 10 years of calls. 10 years of documented tension. 10 years of a pattern that anyone paying attention could see was not getting better. It was getting worse. And the calls were not private knowledge. They were on record. The Tuna County Sheriff's Office had a history with this address. Now I am not here to point fingers at law enforcement specifically, because the truth is, domestic situations are some of the most complicated cases that any department deals with. Victims do not always want to press charges. Situations de-escalate before officers arrive. People go back. People try again. It is not black and white. But what we can say, what the facts tell us, is that the pattern was there. Documented. Real. And in March of 2025, just 4 months before July 11th, another call was made. The most recent official warning sign before everything collapsed. 4 months. That detail matters. Because it means this was not some sudden, unpredictable explosion. There was a trajectory. There was a history. And that history was building towards something that nobody stopped in time. Now here is something else that was reportedly going on in the final stretch of this relationship. According to those who knew the situation, Marquavius had become increasingly jealous. He reportedly did not trust Nikeria, for reasons that by all accounts had no real foundation. And when Nikeria, a grown woman with every right to make her own choices, reportedly began to pull away from the relationship, Marquavius allegedly made it very clear that there would be consequences if she did. He threatened her. Hold on to that word. Threatened. Because it is going to become very important when we get to the night of July 11th. It was a Friday evening. The kind of evening that Robinsonville sees hundreds of times a year. Quiet. Warm. Ordinary on the surface. At approximately 7:06 p.m., the Tuna County Sheriff's Office received a call. Gunshots fired at 1060 Solio Drive. Deputies responded immediately. What they arrived to find at that address was something that no first responder, no matter how experienced, is ever truly prepared for. Inside that home they found Nykeria Jude, 30 years old, shot. She was pronounced dead on the scene. She never made it out of that house. Also found at the scene, Marquavius Young, 24 years old, Nikeria's son. He had also been shot and was in critical condition. And then there was Maralaysia, 6 years old, the same little girl from the birthday video. She had also been struck by gunfire. Critical condition. 3 people. 1 home. One of them gone before help could even arrive. And the man responsible, Marquavius Braxton, was nowhere to be found. He had left, fled the scene, taking the weapon with him. Now here is where I need to slow down and just sit in this with you for a moment. Because Maralaysia, that baby, had nothing to do with whatever was going on between 2 adults. She was 6 years old. She woke up that morning as a child who loved her daddy. She sang to him. She smiled at him. She was innocent in every single way. And she still ended up in a hospital bed that night. That is a reality that should shake every single one of us. Because when grown people make destructive choices, it is almost always the children who carry the weight of it longest. Almost immediately after deputies secured the scene, both Maralaysia and Marquavius were airlifted to hospitals in Memphis. Maralaysia was taken to Lebanon Children's Hospital. Marquavius was taken to Regional 1. And law enforcement began the search for Marquavius Braxton. News of what happened on Solio Drive spread fast. In a small town like Robinsonville, it does not take long for word to travel. And when it did, the reaction was exactly what you would expect from a community that had just lost one of its own. Grief, anger, confusion, and a level of sadness that does not have a clean word for it. A domestic violence advocate who spoke to the media put it in terms that a lot of people needed to hear. The victim was 30 years old. She was just really getting started. Just really getting started. That phrase has stayed with me since the first time I heard it, because Nykeria Jude was 30 years old. She had her whole life in front of her. Her daughter was 6. There were decades of motherhood still ahead of her. Graduations, milestones, moments she deserved to be present for, and she never got them. The same advocate continued, "And this part, I need you to really listen to this. It's so serious, you know. And the thing about it, it happens so much. Every 60 seconds. 24 people. 24 every 60 seconds. Every minute. Love is not supposed to hurt. That's not love, you know. And the signs sometimes are there, but we miss them or we overlook them. Every 60 seconds. 24 people. That is not a statistic you can just scroll past. That is the reality of what is happening in homes across this country, right now, while we are having this conversation. In our neighborhoods, on our streets, possibly next door to people we know and love. And the signs, as that advocate said, are sometimes there. We just miss them, or we overlook them. And sometimes, we do not overlook them. We see them clearly, and we still do not know what to do. That is one of the hardest truths in this entire story. While the community grieved and 2 victims fought for their lives in Memphis hospitals, law enforcement launched a full search for Marquavius Braxton. He was declared armed and dangerous. The Tuna County Sheriff's Office released his image to the public. They made it clear, this man needed to be found. For 3 days the search continued. Law enforcement combed the area. Tips came in. The community watched and waited. And then, on Monday, July 14, 2025, at approximately 4:41 p.m., deputies working alongside the United States Marshal Service made a discovery. In a wooded area, located directly behind the residences on Solio Drive, they found a body, not far from the home where it all began. The body was identified as 41-year-old Marquavius Braxton. He had not gone far. He had been there, in that wooded area behind the neighborhood, the entire time. The 4-day search was over, and with it, any possibility of Nykeria Jude ever seeing justice delivered in a courtroom. Now I want to be careful here about how I say the next part, because there are layers to what this moment means for the people left behind. For the community, there was a complicated kind of closure. The man responsible was gone. There would be no trial, no verdict, no sentencing. For Nikeria's family, particularly for her children, the weight of that reality is something no one on the outside can fully measure, because survivors of situations like this carry questions that will never have answers. And that is a burden that follows a person for life. Now, in the middle of all of this grief, there was one moment that this community held on to. One moment that gave people something to feel other than sorrow. Several weeks after July 11th, Maralaysia, 6 years old, a survivor, was discharged from Lebanon Children's Hospital. And the Tuna County Sheriff's Office did something that speaks volumes about the kind of humanity that can exist even in the darkest of times. They organized a full procession to escort her home. The procession kicked off at 3:30 in the afternoon outside the hospital campus in Memphis. The Tuna County Sheriff's Office was joined by the sheriff's departments from Shelby, DeSoto, and Coahoma counties, along with Tunica police, engines revving, lights flashing, officers lining the route, all for one 6-year-old little girl. Now think about what that moment meant, because this child had been through something that most adults could not survive emotionally. She had lost her mother. She had been injured herself. She was going home to a life that looked nothing like the one she had known just weeks before. And law enforcement, the same community that had responded to that call on July 11th, showed up to say, "We see you. We honor you. You matter." That escort was not just a gesture. It was a statement that this little girl's life has value, that her healing matters, that even when the story is painful, and this one is deeply painful, there are still people willing to show up and do something meaningful. Marquavius was also released from Regional 1 and began his own path to recovery. Both of them survived. And while survival is not the same as being whole, it is something. It is a foundation. And the community around them has every reason to pour into that foundation. In the immediate aftermath of what happened, the people who loved Nykeria Jude did what communities do when they do not know what else to do. They showed up. A GoFundMe was created to help cover 2 things: Maralaysia's medical expenses and Nikeria's funeral costs. And the response from people, many of them strangers, was a reminder that even in our most broken moments, there is still generosity in this world. People who never met Nykeria Jude, who had no connection to Robinsonville, Mississippi, they gave, because the story moved them, because they recognized something in it. because they understood that this could have been someone they knew. Online, people wrote things like, "Maybe the oldest can take the little one in." Strangers reaching across the internet with concern for a child they had never met. That is community. That is what we are capable of when we choose compassion over indifference. Now I want to have a real conversation with you, because we have walked through the facts of this case. We have honored Nykeria's memory. We have talked about the people she left behind. But if we stop there, if we just consume this story and move on, then we have missed the entire point. So let me ask you something directly. What does it take for a pattern of behavior to be taken seriously before it reaches a point of no return? Because the calls to that address started in 2015, 10 years before Nykeria died. And the last call was 4 months before July 11th, which means at some point in those 4 months, life went on, routines resumed, and whatever danger existed in that home was not treated as the emergency it actually was. Now again, I am not here to villainize any specific institution or department, because the truth is, this is a systemic issue. It is not unique to Tuna County. It is not unique to Mississippi. It happens in major cities. It happens in suburbs. It happens in communities that look exactly like ours. The system around domestic situations, how we respond, how we follow up, what resources are available, what legal protections actually exist for people trying to leave. All of it needs a serious, honest, community-driven conversation. And so does something else. The culture of silence. Because there were people who knew this relationship was troubled. There were neighbors, friends, family members, people who heard things and saw things and felt in their gut that something was not right. And that is not a judgment, because I understand why people stay quiet. Fear of getting involved, not wanting to overstep, not wanting to make things worse for the person you are trying to help. These are real concerns and they deserve to be acknowledged. But here is the lesson I want to leave with this community today. Silence, even well-intentioned silence, has consequences, and sometimes those consequences are permanent. If you know someone who is in a situation that does not feel safe, you do not have to have all the answers. You do not have to know exactly what to do. But you can show up. You can say, "I see you. I am here. Whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere." Sometimes that is enough to make someone feel like they are not alone. And sometimes, feeling like you are not alone is the thing that gives a person the courage to take a step they have been too afraid to take. Nykeria Jude deserved that. She deserved a village that could catch her. I want to take a moment here and just remember her. Not as a victim, not as a statistic, but as a person. Nykeria Jude was 30 years old. She had a smile that people described in the kind of terms that tell you everything. She was light, beautiful smile. Everybody knows her for a smile. Like, you never seen her with a bad day. Read that again. You never seen her with a bad day. That is the kind of person she was to the people around her. The kind of energy that does not come around every day. And now it is gone. Not because of an illness, not because of an accident, but because of a choice that someone else made. And her daughter, Maralaysia, is going to grow up without her mother. She is going to have questions one day that no one will be able to fully answer. She's going to reach milestones, first day of middle school, high school graduation, maybe her own wedding day, and she is going to feel that absence in a way that is impossible to put into words. That is the real cost of what happened on Solio Drive. Not just one night, not just one tragedy, but a lifetime of moments that Nikeria will never be present for. And a lifetime of moments where her daughter will have to carry that loss. Marquavius, 24 years old, is also carrying something enormous. Surviving something like this does not come without weight. And we hope that he has the support around him to process what he went through and build a life that honors both himself and his mother's memory. Every story we cover on this channel comes with a responsibility. A responsibility to the memory of the people involved. A responsibility to the truth. And a responsibility to this community, to make sure that when we walk away from a story, we walk away with something more than just information. So here is what I want to leave with you today. 2 things. Simple. Direct. Number 1. Take threats seriously. I do not care how small it seems. I do not care how many times someone has said something and then walked it back. When a person tells you, directly or indirectly, that they are willing to hurt you, that is information. And it needs to be treated as information. Document it. Tell someone you trust. Take the steps you need to take to protect yourself. Because a threat is not just words. It is a preview. Number 2. Check on the people in your life. Not just the dramatic check-in. Not just when things have already gotten bad. But the regular, ordinary, everyday check-in. How are you really doing? Is everything okay at home? Do you need anything? Sometimes the most powerful intervention is the most quiet one. Just being the person who asks. Nykeria Jude's story is one of thousands happening across this country every single year. And most of them do not make the news. Most of them happen quietly. In neighborhoods where people are too afraid or too overwhelmed or too tired to speak up. We cannot afford to stay quiet. We cannot afford to look away. We cannot afford to wait until the worst has already happened before we decide to take things seriously. To the memory of Nykeria Jude, 30 years old, a mother, a daughter, a light in every room she walked into. Your story is being told. Your name is being spoken. And the community that did not get to save you is going to make sure that your life meant something beyond the night it was taken. To Maralaysia, little one, you are loved. By people who have never even met you. The procession that brought you home was just the beginning of what this world owes you. Heal at your own pace. And know that your mother's love for you does not have an expiration date. It is permanent. It lives in you. To Marquavius, you survived something that would break most people. That strength is real. Honor it. Use it. And let the people around you be there for you the way you deserve. And to everyone watching right now, in this community, in this conversation, I need you to understand something. This story is not just about Robinsonville, Mississippi. It is not just about Nykeria Jude and Marquavius Braxton. It is about every household in this country where something similar is unfolding right now. Quietly, invisibly, with no cameras and no coverage. The only difference between those stories and this one is that this one got out. Make sure the ones in your circle get out too, before it is too late. If you or someone you know is in an unsafe situation, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. They are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You do not have to have all the answers to make that call. You just have to make it. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring enough to sit through a story this heavy, because that care is what makes a community real. Please share this video, not for the views, but because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear Nykeria's story, and maybe, just maybe, it will be the thing that changes something for them. Until next time, stay safe, look out for each other, and remember, the unseen stories are the ones that matter most. This has been Unseen Stories.